She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays Today podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunswick. All right, what do we have for updates for you? Okay, so we're almost through. Oh no, if you're listening to this, we're officially into March. We did it, everybody. Like spring is going to start to come. So that also means, since we're into March now, that I honestly don't know how much y'all are paying attention to stuff. Like, I think that, so, like anybody who's had an event and you're like, we hung posters, we had Facebook ads, we sent out texts to our patients. And then like after an event, people are like, oh, I didn't even know you were doing that. And you're like, really? Like the only thing I didn't do is send a carrier pigeon, but okay. So maybe you've noticed, maybe you haven't. It's okay. I won't judge you if you haven't. That I have been alluding to a membership that is coming out. And officially, since you are listening to this, we are onboarding the membership. It's really funny to say that because as I'm recording, there is a lot of work that I have to get done between now and the time that you are listening to this, if you're a prompt listener on Sunday. So if you listen on the day of download and you like go to check out, like, okay, pricing and like sign me up, bitch. And you're like, Lauryn, why isn't it working? Well, apparently between now, Wednesday and Sunday, I just didn't get it all done, but I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic that yes, by the time you listen to this, the membership will be soft launched. So here's what this means. For about the first week in March, through about Sunday, March 9th, I am going to be allowing up to 20 seed members into the program. I didn't come up with that name. Danielle Canty did because she's a marketing genius. Seed members are members that are going to be coming in even before the founding members. This is at the cheapest price. These are the people who really believe in the transformation promised in the product and are going to help shape. Like I have a really solid outline on what I'm going to be teaching and how I'm going to be teaching it. But this is really the people who are going to be helping shape, like make sure that we incorporate this struggle in, and I will be listening to the most. So they're going to be coming in at the cheapest portion or portion price. And then they can stay there as long as they want. It's a membership. So you can stay, as long as you want after your commitment period. But what it is, do you want to hear what it is? So it is for healthcare professionals who are looking to create a personal brand that they want to monetize, and they don't want to need to have thousands of followers, and they don't want to commit hours and hours and hours a week to this. So this is truly, you can be a chiropractor, a dentist, a nurse. You can be an associate. You do not need to own the clinic. You also don't need to hate your job. By no means. In fact, this is not for people who are looking to like exit stage left right away and want to like replace their income. They just, maybe there could be a couple different reasons. Maybe you just feel called to a broader stage with a message that you have than your community. Maybe there's a completely different topic that you really are passionate about sharing with online, like it's sourdough or I don't know, homesteading, homeschooling, like things that necessarily your current practice doesn't give you that platform for. Or maybe you like what you do, you like your day job, but you want to continue to create multiple streams of revenue. I have talked very openly about my story and how I have a very successful practice, but year after year, it wasn't getting less stressful, just because as the money goes up, the stress to maintain that income continues. And obviously systems and procedures and yada, yada, all that is incredibly important. But where I really got some of the joy back in my air quotes day job of adjusting was when I started to expand my revenue streams. And there just wasn't as much stress on that one income. But also for me, creating a personal brand has been this creative outlet. I have come to love to enjoy connecting on stories with people. I've come to love enjoying doing reels and educating and launches and like providing products that solve my audience's solutions. It was awkward in the beginning. Like I didn't go on to start a personal brand. I started a podcast and I was like, well, shit, I need an Instagram account to like promote this. And so I went through all of the same struggles that a lot of people do of like comparing themselves to accounts that have hundreds of thousands of followers and are like only trying to get brand affiliates with like AG1 and like these high play people that are like, we're not talking to you because you don't have X number of followers or an X number email list. So some of the things in the program that I'm going to walk you through the 8-step success path where we're really helping you clarify your niche, get super streamlined in your content creation, create a landing page. Yes, a simple landing page, because this is what's going to set you, a healthcare professional, aside from like some influencer in Miami. Okay. Like if you're looking to get paid for speaking, if you're looking to do high end brand deals, like you need to come across like a professional and not just a 20 something, 30 something, 40 something who air quotes want a chunk of the pie. Okay. I will say if you are just interested in this membership because you want more money and more revenue streams, this isn't a good idea for you. You should highly consider something else. But for those that are like, yeah, I really like, I have some followers and I just don't know really what to do with it, how to do it, or I want to get followers. This is a program you should highly look into and sign up at the seed launch. Like I said, March 1st through March 9th will be our seed launch. After March 9th, it will go up a little bit in price. And that's when we'll be in our founding members. So price will be up a little bit, but that until May will be, the next cheapest price. And then May, it'll bump up quite a bit. So I'll have a link for you below. Oh shit. I don't even know if I have a link. Hopefully I'll have a link because I have a link. I just don't really feel confident today giving it to my editor because whatever, people. This is my superpower. This is my superpower that I'm going to teach you how to just like say I'm doing this. And then you are obligated to do it because you officially announced you were doing it. Okay, so today's episode, I have on Dr. Savannah Ford. She is a chiropractor who she practices down in Florida. I'm trying to remember. She doesn't have it in, St. Petersburg. And so there was this moment, rewind to Chiro WealthCon that happened in Miami in October, a week after the second hurricane came through Gulf of America. I had to hit Florida. And Savvy was supposed to come to Chiro WealthCon, but a week before had gotten just absolutely slammed with Helene. Now at Chiro WealthCon, Sebastian Bonin, who is a chiropractor and coach for TR, the Remarkable Practice, he was on stage. He practices out of Puerto Rico, and he just briefly touched on his experience when your practice like has to close down for months, or like your local community gets absolutely shook, and what happens to that day job dependable income of yours. So I wanted to invite Savvy on to really walk us through some of the details around how she prepared her team, how she kind of rallied around her practice members as their practice size was cut like in half, what was appropriate marketing during this time, what was appropriate outreach, because you don't want to be super salesy while all these people have lost their homes. But 2024 really was a year of a lot of natural disasters. I almost said air quote natural disasters. Is this podcast turning into a conspiracy podcast? I'm not really sure. Anyways, some of them are natural. Some of them may not have been natural, but came across as natural. We don't know. But we just ask questions around here. I don't ask questions. I just throw stuff out to the wall and see if it sticks, because I'm not big enough to get sued yet. So anyways, 2024, we had wildfires, we had tornadoes, we had alligators. Okay, listen to the end. You'll understand why I brought up alligators. We really didn't have a national crisis around alligators, but in my mind, some of these hurricanes could have created a national disaster around hurricanes. All right, so let's hear about Dr. Savvy. She graduated from Life University, that's a chiropractic college, in 2014. 2000. And focused her studies on pediatrics, pregnancy, and family care with the goal of one day promoting wellness for the entire family. That goal has blossomed. There's air quotes there because her chiropractic clinic is Blossom Family Chiropractic, blossomed into creation of Blossom Family Chiropractic practice in St. Petersburg, Florida. In addition to managing her practice, Dr. Savy is an established speaker in her community and within the chiropractic profession. Outside the office, she enjoys traveling and spending quality time with her son, Chase, who's 6, her daughter, Emery, who's 4, and her husband, Lucas. All right, let's take a deep old breath and prayer because I feel like this topic might definitely need a good prayer. Oh man, I put the stress of saying good prayer. Why did I do that? Okay. It at least needs a mediocre at best prayer. Dear God, as we are talking about this topic of natural disasters, there are so many questions that, as we look to you and bad things happen. And like, especially when we're like bad things happening to good people and good businesses are going out of business because of things and there's tragedy. And it's so easy to just feel frustrated, that we don't have answers. It doesn't make sense with this matrix that we have created in our mind of karma and having a divine plan for us. And so, God, I'm not asking for answers. I'm just asking for a continuation of blind faith for those that are listening and that are going through, even if it's not a natural disaster, maybe it is a divorce and they are really, their clinic is, the numbers are deeply reflecting their not presence, or maybe it's a very bad postpartum journey where they're not returning to work even remotely as fast as they thought they were. And so I gotta just ask for anybody listening who may relate in some way to Savy's experience and story to find comfort that they're not, the only one going who's had terrible things interfere with their career growth and their business growth, and to be inspired by her absolute grit to rebuild and to learn lessons from her beautiful example of leadership of how she showed up for her team during that time. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, without further ado, here is my conversation with Savannah Ford on rebuilding after Hurricane Helene. Okay, Savvy. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Did you, when you were dreaming about one day being a guest, was this exactly the topic that you were like, oh, I hope I can go on and talk about absolute crisis care?
Yeah, I don't think that this is the topic that I thought. I was like, you know what? One day Lauren's going to ask me to be on her podcast. It's going to be great. This was not the topic that I expected.
It's going to be how I'm killing it in practice.
Yeah.
I mean, you are killing it in practice, but then just weather came and killed your practice.
Yeah, something's killing it.
Yeah. I think that, so we had Cairo WealthCon in October and it was like 2 weeks after the hurricane or something, right? Like it was really close.
Well, yeah, it was like 3 weeks after the initial hurricane and then a week after, I think, Milton, which was the second hurricane. So,
but I remember one of our guests, Sebastian Bonin, he's from Puerto Rico, and he was on stage and he was talking about this crazy hurricane that went through Puerto Rico a couple years ago and how he thought he'd be prepared for something like this. And he ended up like, it was like 18 months before things were recovered. And so it was just like one of those things where we're just seeing, I mean, gosh, like we've got fires. Poor Dallas is getting an inch of snow and the poor people of Dallas have to
I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, and North Florida has like a foot of snow or something. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So take me back to the days up before, because like you're in St. Petersburg, like
Yes.
You've been in practice how long?
My practice has been open almost 9 years. I've been in practice 11 years. I was an associate for 2 years before I opened that.
So you're not new to hurricanes.
No.
At all. So like take me back to kind of the week before or I don't know if they were talking about it
I
weeks
was,
before.
oh my gosh, I was living my best life. I was on a 2-week Europe vacation for my husband's 40th birthday. I was literally living my best life. We went to Spain, we went to Paris, we went to Amsterdam, we finished off in Munich for Oktoberfest, literally living our best lives. And we were in Oktoberfest, kind of watching the weather because, I'm like, all right, I see this hurricane coming and I think I'm gonna have to close down the practice probably. And as it starts getting closer, we're like, oh, this looks like it's gonna be a direct hit. Like, we need to get back. So we were actually scheduled to fly back to Tampa on the day Hurricane Helene hit. And Delta canceled my flight. And I was like, I've got to get back. Like, my kids are there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to get back. So my kids were staying with my parents who live about an hour inland. And we flew into Orlando because that's the closest that they could get us. We drove through the freaking hurricane. Like, there's hurricane force winds. We rented a car. I remember Enterprise being like, where are you going? I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's
You don't need to know.
2 hours west, not in the Tampa direction. It's fine. And so we ended up going over to my parents' house, driving through the hurricane. The worst of Helene before all the flooding happened at like 8 o'clock. We got at my parents' house at 8:05, right? And then by 9 o'clock, my neighborhood group chat just starts blowing up. And I'm like, oh no. So by 9 o'clock, the first neighbor says, water's in my house. And I'm like, oh God. All right. And then, because the water happens after the hurricane goes past, right?
Okay.
So you get the storm surge afterwards. And then the next neighbor about a minute later, water's in my house now. Another neighbor, water's in my house now. And we're like, oh no, this is bad. This is bad. And then by about 3 o'clock in the morning, we got texts from everybody who stayed through it saying, this is getting really scary. I've got 3 feet of water in my house. Like, I'm on a bed, and they're like cuddling their kids on the bed. I mean, it got pretty scary.
Yeah.
And so I knew that our house was not exempt from
Now,
this,
your
right?
clinic, okay, so your clinic is higher up, right?
Yes. So
Yep.
the clinic is it's 18 feet. We're on the 12th floor of an 18-foot like tower downtown.
So you, at this point, like, I'm assuming priority 1 is get me the hell to my children. Like,
yes.
yeah, mama bear, like, not even, and then, like, how do you guys go about deciding when to cancel? Like, is any time?
Oh, like, okay. So I try and follow the school protocol typically when we're canceling, but it's really like, okay, because some people were evacuating for this.
Right.
And then a lot of people just like, I'm not leaving my house. And so I'm like, okay, at what point does it become a safety concern? And also, when are people evacuating? Because what I've seen is when I stay open, I mean, we'll go from a full schedule to a million cancellations, like 90%
Right.
cancellations in 2 seconds.
But you've probably also seen a ton of, so, like, I'm just picturing, like, let's say on a Monday, the news is like, oh my gosh, this Thursday, Friday, we're going to be in the direct line.
Yeah.
Media loves to, I don't live in hurricane world. I live in snow territory, where they're like, we're going to get 3 feet of snow. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be the worst blizzard that we've
Sure.
seen. And then it's like, we get an inch of snow. So I would imagine a similar thing happens.
Oh, the media for sure hypes it up. And that's why I think a lot of people don't actually leave, is because we're like, yeah, we've been through this a million times.
I'm a
Hurricane parties,
Floridian.
like, great.
Like, yep.
Yes. It's what it is, right?
Right.
And so I mean, I wasn't here for the hype up of this one. I was out of the country living my best life in Europe.
And is your team
However,
like messaging you and just like,
oh
hey,
yeah, and
how do you
it
feel
started
about us?
on Monday being like, "Hey, I don't know if you've seen this, but like there's a hurricane coming." And it hit on Thursday. And
Okay.
so they're like, "There's a hurricane coming. Like, what do you think we should do?" And then on Tuesday they're like, "Yeah, so, people are starting to really freak out."
Loving your Instagram stories. Can't wait to see what you bought at Paris. Can you
Uh-huh.
give us some feedback on what you want us to do?
So on Tuesday, I'm like, "Okay, guys, go ahead and cancel Wednesday so everybody can get their homes prepared,
Yep.
whatever. And then obviously we're going to be out on Thursday. Let's plan on opening back up on Friday."
Oh, you were going to open up Friday. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Get in there
Because
on
it was going to,
Friday. Get back
okay.
to work.
Okay.
No, we did not end up opening on Friday.
So take me back then. Okay. So you're with your kids now and you're now starting to worry about your home. You're not having to worry about patients. Like everything's
Everybody's
canceled. Your
canceled
clinics
at this
dry up.
point. Yep, everybody's canceled. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm like, well, if this happened to me, this is probably happening to others right now, right? So next day, my husband and I are like, we've got to get to the house and see what's going on. And so we had to, luckily, my parents still took the kids because seeing our house for the first time was intense. We still had to park about a mile away and then wade through about 3 feet of water to get to our house. It was gross, like sewage water. It was disgusting. And then you get to the house and to walk in for the first time and see everything that you've ever worked for completely ruined. And that wasn't even, honestly, I'm not attached to things that much, but to see literally knowing your house will never ever look the same, right? And all of your kids' toys you had to throw out, all of their clothes that you had to throw out, the things that can't get replaced, like the artwork and stuff that they've created. Like literally everything is just destroyed. I mean, it was a really emotional day. I actually filmed like an Instagram story and you
I
can just
saw
hear
it.
me crying on the story and like
And
tears holding back.
and it's true that a lot of people like, did you have flood insurance?
Yes, I did
You
have
did.
flood insurance,
But a lot
but
of people did not, right? Like,
well,
aren't
and
there
it does it. I mean, it's kind of crap what they cover, to be
okay.
very honest.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like, I mean, it is going to cost a lot more to rebuild my home than what we're getting reimbursed for.
Got it. Okay. So
So,
it's not like not that anybody would be this heartless or whatever of like, yeah, but now you get a new kitchen. Like it's not fun like
uh,
that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I always wanted to redo my kitchen. This
Just
just
wasn't
wasn't
how.
how I wanted to redo my kitchen. So,
Mhm.
you know, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
um, but yeah, luckily we were able to cut out all the drywall. We had to go 4 feet up with the drywall. We were able to cut all of that out, get all of the stuff out of our house. I mean, the amount of crap that we just put on the front lawn that was literally there for months before anybody came to pick it up. I mean,
So
it
this
was
is the
insane.
weekend. You didn't open up Friday. You decided to stay closed Friday.
We
Saturday,
stayed
Sunday.
closed Friday.
So like when do you go how long did you stay closed as a clinic for?
We were open on Monday.
Okay. And what was that like? Like, first of all, how big is your team?
Uh, we had 5 people
Okay.
total.
So how do you hold so yeah, I've got multiple questions here from like the business standpoint because that's where like my brain is just like not wanting to be heartless, but also like I am running a business. So did you have to like give a pep talk of like, see you Monday?
Okay. So I didn't know how I was going to come in on Monday because literally as soon as water starts going through, my neighborhood group chat blows up. I'm like, dang, if this is happening to me, I can't imagine the amount of people that are going to lose their homes from this in
Right.
my practice. And so my immediate thought is, shit, what's going to happen to the practice?
Mm-hmm.
How far down the rabbit hole are we going to go with this? And then also, am I going to have to lay off my team?
Right. Yeah.
Because
Because if
I
you
feel
go, if you go from 300 patient visits a week down to 100, like,
big
yeah.
jump.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big jump, right? And so, yeah, I mean, we were seeing around 400 people a week before, and I was just like, where is this going to go? How far down are we going to go? Am I going to have to lay off the team? So I was really nervous about coming in on Monday and seeing what kind of aftermath we were going to walk into, right? And not only that, but then I just knew what I was dealing with personally. I mean, I was in a really deep place. Like, we're homeless now.
Uh-huh.
We're living with my parents an hour away. Like, well, we only did that for 2 weeks because I love my parents, but it was not sustainable. And then, yeah, so I was just like, okay, what are we going to walk into? And I was still super emotional. And I was like, how am I going to be there for my patients? How am I going to be there to support my team during this when I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling? Right. And I knew that they were all feeling this way because even the people that didn't get flooded, they had survivor's guilt from this because everybody knows somebody that did. Right. And then Monday comes in, we get in the clinic. Honestly, I'm not one that usually cries, and I cried so much that day. Literally everyone that saw me was crying, and I was crying, and like every patient I saw was just we were all crying together and hugging. And I'm not a cryy person, but it definitely happened. But then the texts start coming in, and over that week, our practice, well, 25% of our practice lost their homes. So a pretty significant amount. And then 13 days after Helene, we got hit with Hurricane Milton. And it was a direct hit. And so a lot of the people that didn't flood with Hurricane Helene got flooded with Hurricane Milton, or the wind destroyed their homes. And so then we went down another probably 5 to 10%. So at that point, we're looking at over 30% of the practice, their homes are wiped out.
Right.
And so what's the first thing to cut?
Yeah.
They're like, I love you guys. I know you'd help with my stress, but I don't even have a home. So
And I think that's definitely a part that, I don't know, sometimes I hear chiropractors imply that, I don't know, kind of to the essence that if you haven't trained your patients, that you are the last thing they should cut. And I just want to do like the biggest freaking eye roll I possibly can of like, no, these people need like drywall and like a
they need a
vehicle
roof
and
above their head.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually surprised you only lost 20, because I would imagine even if I didn't lose my house, like when you're in a state of panic, like, well, I might not have lost my house, but now my kid's school is flooded. So now they're redirecting here. So I feel like people just in general, when there's, because you run a wellness clinic. And so, like we've got people who are like once a week, right? They're once a
Yeah.
week. And as soon as like something changes in their life, even a little bit sometimes, they're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, we've got football starting and like I just need to
I
like
can't
figure
handle
out
this.
when we're going to be able to come for our appointments. And it's like, it's okay. What's the football schedule? And so like I can only imagine that there had to have been a bunch of people who even were just like, I'm fine, but my sister-in-law's not, and like they're going to be living with us, and like just that
Yep.
frantic energy.
Oh,
What
I was just talking about the people that lost their homes that discontinued care. The patient volume loss that we saw of just people getting off of care because they decided to stay wherever they evacuated for a month because they couldn't get back to their homes.
We'll call you a whole bunch of we love you, we'll be
We'll
back.
call you. Yeah.
Like, great. I don't know if our normal reactivation text through sked is going to be as emotionally supportive as it should be. Okay. So what did you
Oh God.
tell? Okay. From an organizational standpoint.
Yes.
So, okay. So like you're telling your team, and even if you didn't have a good process, what would you have done differently? Of like, did you keep a spreadsheet of like,
Yeah.
it just like basically don't try and convince anybody of anything else? Yes, do you do auto debits?
Yeah.
Yep. So like pause all auto debits, pause everything. What did you do?
I debated this one because I'm just like, okay, if they were affected, we definitely tried to say, oh, well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and pause this auto debit for this month. We'll reach back to you next month to try and get you back on track, help with the stress levels, blah, blah, blah.
How was that received?
Most people were like, okay, let's give it a month. We'll see how it
We'll
shakes
reconvene.
out. But there was a lot of people that were like, we don't even have a roof above our heads. And you have to be so sympathetic. And
Yeah.
my team, I just told them, I said that Monday, I was like, listen, everybody that called in, love the hell out of them, right? They will eventually come back, but they've got to get their life together. And I was like, I am so sympathetic to this because I'm in the same boat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'd be like if your hairstylist called and was like, okay, so I have you down for a noon for foils. Like, are we good? And you're like, what? No, I will not be
No.
there at noon
Yeah.
for my foils.
Yeah.
And
So
honestly, a woman's hair is sometimes categorized higher than her chiropractic. I could be going through a trauma with really bad roots, but
Uh, so
okay.
yeah, I mean, our numbers went from around 400 a week to down to for a good like month, like 150 a week.
Okay.
For yeah.
So did you reach out to your landlord to see if you can get a reduction? Was there any of that kind of stuff going on of like, hey,
That wasn't even an option. I was just internally freaking out and being like, okay, what are we going to do? I just lost my home. I have so many expenses coming up, trying to figure out, hey, where do we live in the meantime? How do we rebuild our house? And now my practice is getting cut. What do I do with my employees? I don't want to lay them off, but also like, how do I support them in this time? And they really rallied around me. And I was like, I need to be there for them. I need to grow the hell out of this practice in order to keep everybody on. And so I think I went from more of this sympathetic state to like, all right, let's just get shit done. Let's go to work. Let's start some action.
so what is action that you took?
Yeah.
Because like I saw Kim Kardashian get blasted for posting something on social media about like Skims while the fires were happening. And so it was just like,
It,
is it like kind
yeah.
of insensitive to be like new patient special?
So I really, in my head, like I talked to my whole team about this. I'm like, all right, like how do we get some quick income, but also not be insensitive
Right.
to what is happening in this situation? And so one of the things that we did was we did a reactivation campaign for former wellness patients. And so we pretty much offered them a pretty discounted like 12 or 24 pack that they could get back on track with care with a free progress exam. So anybody that had fallen off literally since I've been in practice, like 9 years, right? And at like
But like
discounted wellness rates.
were these like including the people who just fell off in the last like week or two?
No,
Okay, so you kind of like had those
no.
people like just don't reach out to them. This was like
Yeah. It was like, hey, anybody that hasn't been in for, let's say 6 months plus, like, let's go ahead and do this reactivation special. And we framed it in a way of like, we know how stressful this can be, and we want to help. And to lower that financial burden, we're offering it at this amount.
Yep. Is there any culture when something like this happens in a town of just being able to call a spade and being like businesses are going to close, like support businesses?
Oh my gosh. Well, St. Pete is wonderful because it is such a supportive community for small business. So everybody rallied around small business. It was amazing. I mean, there's such a good culture. Like people were trying to support as much as they could. And I mean, the way that this community came together was really amazing.
Okay. So
Really amazing.
there is a little bit of grace to you as a
Yeah.
business owner
And
trying to
I
put the
think
pieces back together.
Yeah, and I think that we have a really good network of other local businesses in the area that are kind of the strategic partners for us. And so we all band together too to help support one another and to really get the word out there like, hey, listen, these small businesses need you, you
Right.
know? So if you're able, these are things that you can do.
Right. Um, I have seen a lot of chiros do like free adjustments for like EMS and da 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 da. And obviously that's not helping their bottom line, but like is kind of trying to keep their name in
Mhm.
that. Did you do anything like that? Like I could see that backfiring.
I didn't. I mean, EMS wasn't really involved in this one. It's not
Yeah.
like the fires. So I didn't do that, but we did do a kind of a GoFundMe essentially,
Okay.
where we, for instance, at Christmas time, we had our annual event, Cookies with Santa. And so, in order to, we have a professional photographer every year come, we have Santa come. And so, for the parents to get a picture with Santa, we said it is a suggested $20 donation, and this is where it's going. And it went and was distributed to all of the different families internally that were affected.
Oh, okay.
So all of our families internally, we had a whole spreadsheet of everybody that lost their home and was severely affected by the hurricane. And so everybody, and we did a few other things around the community to try and generate money. And then we split that between everybody in the practice who was affected.
Okay. What's another thing that you did besides the Santa thing?
So we actually there was 1 week or two, no, excuse me, 2 weeks that we did a discounted new patient exam, but then put 100% of proceeds to that as well.
Got it. So you had just done a 2 week. So like I'm just thinking, all right, numbers are down because you have two associates.
Yeah.
So numbers are way down. You've got two associates and you've got your life, your personal life, your home in crumbles.
In
Like,
shambles. Yeah.
right. Like, how much did you feel like you were able, and you had just been on a 2 week vacation, right? Like, so like maybe even in a normal world, it'd be like, all right, I'm going to take the next 2 weeks off. Like, but where did you feel the pull? Like, did you feel like you needed to lean into your team more because of
Yeah.
that emotional aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody on my team was going through it emotionally. Nobody else on my team lost their home, but they were feeling it in some capacity, right? I mean, they knew so many people that were affected. They were having these heart to hearts with our patients that were coming and just crying. I mean, you like our second job is almost as a therapist sometimes. And so trying to be there for them and just kind of taking that on. And then I think that they probably felt a lot of this like, okay, what's Savvy going to do? Because our numbers are way down, right?
Right.
So I had a conversation with them. I never brought up any like layoffs or anything like that, but I was like, guys, our numbers are so down. And I know everyone is going through it, but we've got to get these numbers up for this business to keep running like it is right now.
Right.
Right. Or how it was running. And so, yeah, we did the reactivation campaign. Also, on one of your episodes, you were talking about how you implemented Shockwave, and
Yeah.
so a while ago, I ended up getting Shockwave. So we
Shockwave or
sold
Softwave?
Shockwave.
Okay. So you did the
I literally did the
$80,000?
same exact one that you did.
Yeah. It works amazing. I'm so
Yeah, it's
like,
great.
I
Patients love
don't
it,
understand. Yeah.
and it's 10 grand versus.
Yeah. You could buy 6 of them. Like, okay. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, yeah. So we did discounted Shockwave
Mhm.
packages, right? To try and generate new just more income, like quick,
Are you
easy,
texting people?
prepay.
Like, is that your main way that you're getting a hold of people is through text?
For
Like,
the most part, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But after Milton, the our whole area, so the second hurricane, our whole area didn't have power for like 2 to 3 weeks. So
Seriously?
yeah, so it was really like,
Milton sucked too.
yeah.
Did your
So
office have power?
we luckily are in the same grid as the hospital. So
Okay.
ours always had,
Always keeps power.
yes. But nobody else had power and there was no water. You couldn't get gas. Everybody evacuated for Milton. So not only did everybody they're going through like this emotional trauma of what Helene just brought, but then 13 days later, here comes Milton. So about, you know, 10 days into this, they're like, Milton's coming, guys. This is going to be even higher storm surge and blah, blah, blah. And so everybody got out of town and they
Did you
were gone
close your
for a
clinic for
week.
another 2 weeks?
Yes, I had to.
Oh my God. While you're paying
Yeah.
payroll
Yeah.
and
And 10
overhead,
grand a month for rent. Yeah.
did you have savings?
Yeah. I mean,
You did.
yes.
You did have
Well,
savings.
I did have savings.
I used to. I used to have savings.
I used to have savings. It was a thing of the past.
Okay, so why was there how did you decide that you were going to like guarantee payrolls like that?
I just said, let's see. I had a conversation with my husband. I'm like, listen, the next couple months are gonna be rough. Like, thank God he's working. Um, but I was like, they're gonna be really rough. And he knew that. And I said, what do we want to do going forwards? Like, how fat, like, I want to support my team. I want to be there for them. They're here for me right now. And I want to keep them on board. And he said, I fully appreciate that. He's like, let's see how the next 90 days play out.
Okay.
And that
So
was our goal. Just make it to
okay.
90 days.
Make it to 90 days.
Yeah. And so with kind of this community of like strategic partners, we all were like, all right, all of our businesses are suffering right now. So how are we all going to support each other? We did like old school screening and like pop-ups in each
Yep.
other's offices and stuff, just to support one another. And honestly, in 2.5 weeks, I did 5 screenings.
You got that new girl energy.
I had that new girl energy.
Yeah, I talk about this because last year I had so usually in multi-passionate chiropreneur we don't let like noobs in. And I was
Mhm.
talking to this girl doing her like discovery call and she's like, "Well, I'm 2.5 years in." And I'm like, kind of on the cutoff that I may not let in. Like, what are your numbers? And she's like, "Well, we see 450 a week." And I'm like,
Okay.
"Okay. How many
Okay.
docs?" She's like, "Well, it's just me and 4 CAs." And I was like, "Okay." And so then we started talking. She had like 400 new patients last year and like
Yes.
her CA. And so she came into the program and she was in this like strategy call with 7 other docs who have more air quote experience than her. And
Mhm.
everybody's just like leaning in like, "Okay, so how did you get that many new patients?" And she's just like, "Screenings." And we're just like,
Mhm.
"Huh." Because you've got all these docs who are like, "Ugh, I've graduated past needing to do a
I don't need
screening.
to do this
I don't need to
anymore.
do screenings anymore." And it's like, yet that same doc is like, "I really want more new patients, but I'm not uncomfortable enough to do a screening." So yeah, you're like, "Fuck yeah, I'll do anything now at this point to save my clinic."
I mean, literally, you go back, like, if I go back 9 years when I was opening up the clinic, I was like, yeah, screenings all the time. Like I had probably 2 a week, and then other 2 days a week, I'd be at networking events after work and, doing talks all around the community. I'm like, oh no, I'm getting that energy back in here.
Yep.
Like, we've got to grow the shit out of this right now. To get these numbers back, to be able to support my team, just to be able to support myself, to be able to rebuild my house. Like, it's kind of one of those things. When I left my associate position and I opened my practice, I was like, all right, this is it. Like, it is, I'm all in, right? So I'm going to
Mhm.
go all in on this. And it was kind of the same, like, survival, like, we're doing this.
Yep.
We're getting these numbers back up.
So you did screenings, you did a reactivation campaign.
Yep.
What else did you do?
We did a Women, Wine, and Wellness internal event that got a lot of people from the community
It
in
did.
here. Mhm.
How late after the hurricane was it?
So we had to push it back. It was supposed to be it was supposed to be a week after Hurricane Milton, the second hurricane hit, but 90% of St. Pete didn't have power at that
Right.
point. And I was like, no, this is in bad taste. Being like, grab all your girlfriends, come drink some wine and support
Right.
local business. So
We have power.
we have power. No, so we had to cancel that one, postpone it, and we did it the following month.
Okay.
So Hurricane Helene was September 26th. Uh, Hurricane Milton was like the second week in October.
Mhm.
And then we did Women, Wine, and Wellness in the middle November.
Okay.
So,
So, yeah, how did you start? So then like a month passes.
uh-huh.
How do you start reaching out to those patients who quit because their life got super affected?
Yeah, it was one of those things we honestly, it wasn't even, it was the personal outreach. It was a phone call and just being like, hey, I just wanted to check on you. Like, I know you've been through it. We just wanted to see how you're doing, and not even make it about them coming in the clinic, just check on them personally and how they're doing. And then by that point, honestly, I wouldn't say a ton of them, but a decent amount of them were like, you know what? I've got my life figured out. I have a rental right now. So we're able to kind of get back in and like get back into a normal routine. But it wasn't until November that people started sort of trickling back in.
Mhm. What is currently going on with your clinic and house? Because as
I
we're
mean,
recording, it's January.
yeah, it's January. Well, clinic numbers are coming back up. You feel the momentum going. With all of the screenings and everything we did, I mean, it was a pretty big influx of new patients, and we needed that. So right now, a little over 300 a week right now. So it's coming back up because those numbers got scary. Like I hadn't seen those numbers in practice since, I mean, early COVID days, right? When my practice took a huge dive.
Mhm.
But we were able to rebound in 2020 and like see even better numbers towards the
Right.
end of it.
Yep.
But I remember in the beginning of 2020 being really scared. And I mean, end of September and October, I was still in that like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? I can't even afford to live life right now. But personally, I mean, and we see the numbers coming back in the clinic right now. We have such momentum. Momentum kind of stalled around the holidays because we always take a week off. I let my team have a week off to kind of recharge, and so momentum did die a little bit. It took us a couple weeks in the beginning of January to get that back, but I mean now we're booked out like 2 weeks, so that's a good problem to have. I will take it, and I have a marketing coordinator. Unfortunately, I hired her, maybe fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. I had hired her a week before I left on my 2-week vacation.
Okay.
And then Hurricane Helene hit. I was like, why did I add another person to my payroll?
Right. So she was
Um,
like a local real person or like a
yeah,
virtual.
she's a
Okay.
local real person. She's my marketing coordinator, but also CA.
Got it.
Yeah. So I had just hired her on before I left for
Yeah. Hard to say.
vacation.
Fortunate, unfortunate. Like,
I mean, but the good news is she's amazing and she's really doing a lot to try and help grow the business
yeah.
and things that I didn't have time for, right?
Right.
So that you kind of get away from the community connections and like fostering that relationship, doing a lot of the just being on top of the social media. So it's not a last minute, like, oh, who's going to post the reel today? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Being on stories. I mean, she's doing really well with that. So I'm so fortunate and so grateful that I have her on the team. But I remember right after it happened being like, well, I wish I wouldn't have made that hire.
But it's good. You wouldn't,
It's good. That's
you would
good.
have had to spend time on, your marketing. So what's
Yes.
going on with the house?
Well, we are currently living in a 1-bedroom apartment. It is 700 square feet with my husband and I and our 2 kids. It's real cozy. My love language is always quality time. Now my love language is a hotel by myself.
Yes.
But luckily we are signing a lease for a townhouse soon. So hopefully mid-February, we'll be moving into a townhouse with more space because it's going to take a while for my house to get rebuilt. We decided with just my anxiety around this. I mean, my house has never flooded. It was built in 1970. This was the first time, 1 in 100 year storm, is what they call it. But I'm like, I don't know. The government's messing with the weather. This might happen
Yeah.
again. Right. And so my anxiety was like, no, I don't want to be in, I mean, we live on the water. I don't
Yeah.
want to be in a place that this happens again.
Okay. So
And
you're going to move?
so, no, I love my community. I love my neighbors so much. All of our besties live in the neighborhood and I don't want to move. So we are using what was our home as the concrete block of our home as the first floor. So that will be the garage / storage
Oh,
area. And then
okay.
we're building a new house on top of it
Got it. Yeah.
that we'll
Okay.
live off of.
Okay.
So it's a long process. We're still in architecture plans, and then we have to submit for permitting, and then it'll probably take another 6 to 8 months to build. So my goal was to
Are
be
you
in
going to
by
be the weird house?
Christmas.
Are other houses around you doing that too? Or are you going to be the
No, a
weird
lot of
house?
other houses are
Okay.
doing it
You're,
now.
I mean, not that you should build your house based on whatever, but like you're the only house that's like our first floor is the
Towering
second
over
floor.
everyone
Yeah.
else. But yeah, so we're doing it. I was hoping to be in by Christmas. I don't think that that's going to be
Of
realistic.
this year.
So we are signing a year lease for this townhouse. If I can get in by February-ish of 2026, I will be happy with that.
Yeah. And you probably, I mean, you're probably dealing with all of the, I mean, we had a single really bad hailstorm come through. And the amount of crappy roofers that just flood to an area when, so like you're probably sorting through, you want to be on a good contractors list and not some sketchy person. And
All those things.
so, what is something that you think that you did exceptionally well on reflection? Like looking back, like what is something that you as a leader for your team and your clinic and your patients did really, really well? And if you were like, giving advice to someone who is going through a tornado, a hurricane, a fire, etc. What's your advice?
Honestly, I think that number one, the fact that I decided like I'm going to support my team through this, I'm going to keep them employed because it would have been a lot easier on payroll had I just been like,
Yep.
let's cut down on who's here. But the fact that I made a commitment, I was like, you know what? We are going to get through this. It's going to be a rough couple months, but like I need everybody to come together and let's grow the hell out of this practice in a very short amount of time, kind of getting back to the basics. I think for me as a leader, that was really good. And I'm really proud of my team and how they supported our patients too. During this time, I mean, obviously our volume was a lot lower. So they spent a little bit more time with people on the table than they normally do. But they love the hell out of these patients. And I think that they felt really supported. And the way that we just checked in with the people that were affected as well, right? And just checked in with them and we're like, okay, like, how are you doing? What do you need from us? How can we help? I think was pretty great.
What is something that in reflection you do differently, air quotes, next time? Or like what's something that you were making a decision in the moment and now that you've had time to process is like, probably would have handled that differently. Or if it's even like in your preparedness for something like this. But it sounds like you had savings.
I did have savings, which was great. I'm not really sure. I would have, had I been home, I would have lifted my furniture, so maybe I didn't have to buy all new furniture.
But would you have
But
lifted it 3 feet? You wouldn't have lifted it that much,
right, how
probably.
would I have lifted it 3 feet? I don't know.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I think that we navigated it as well as we possibly could in this situation. And luckily, although I won't say that the practice will never go through something like this again because things happen that are out of your control, right? But
You are in Florida.
and we are in Florida, but personally, we're building our house so this doesn't happen again. But yeah, I don't know honestly what I would do differently in a different situation. I think we navigated it with as much grace as we could.
All right. really random question. I have an intense fear of alligators. Like, it's a weird phobia. I don't know if like in a past life
You got eaten by one?
gotten eaten by an alligator.
Yeah.
Because I'm in Wisconsin, I should not think and dream about alligators as much as I do.
Okay.
Were alligators an issue at any point in this? Like,
I'm
were
sure that there
like,
were.
because like this was ocean water, right?
Yeah.
But was it,
But
but
alligators are in the ocean. They're freshwater.
right, they're not in the ocean.
Correct.
Right. So, but
Right.
like, but you've got like waterways blending and stuff.
There were several. I didn't hear about anybody like getting eaten by an alligator or anything like that.
Comforting.
Yeah, but there were like alligators in pools.
Yeah.
And then people found alligators kind of like walking along the beaches and stuff afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. So
So
it is
yeah,
as terrible as I thought it was.
I have a bigger phobia of sharks. So
I don't think you should. I don't think you should. As somebody who lives in Florida, would you ever go swimming in a lake?
no.
No. Okay. So people in Florida don't swim in lakes, right?
I learned when I was in middle school, I did learn to ski on a lake in Florida, but I also skied over several alligators' heads.
Yeah. All right. So I don't think
So
this is an
as an
unjustified
adult, I
fear.
don't know. And
You don't let
I
your
would not
kids.
allow my kids to go swimming in a Florida lake.
Okay. That validates everything I've ever thought. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any final wisdom or advice for anybody who is listening, who is like going through their practice with something that's completely out of their control and affecting their patients and their community?
I mean, I think you just have to band together as a community and love on the people that are there, that are supporting you, that are supporting your business, and just do your best to be there for the people that are going through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Savvy.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, it sounds like, the fact that you're already in the 300s, that's incredible, girl. Like that's
Thanks.
incredible. I hope your new girl energy stays and you guys just like soar to like 600.
Listen, I am prepared to crush it in 2025. I had this annual planning meeting in 2024. I got the team so hype. Like they're all on fire right now.
Yeah, you're really having to step into the leader that they need. Like, I bet your leadership skills like went up a notch or 7.
I feel like it is.
Yeah. Under stress. Those are the good leaders. Is like under stress we rise. So I say as if I would. I'd be like, I'm not leaving my house. There's alligators everywhere.
Lauren, how did we go through this whole podcast and you didn't ask me what my Enneagram type was?
I already know your Enneagram. You're a 3.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't need to know. I only ask people that I don't know their Enneagram.
Okay, that's totally fair.
And I didn't know that because you've told me in the past. It's just like
you're like, I can type you out.
Yep. Yeah. 3C3s. I see it.
Yeah.
But it is funny though, in the same sense, that reverse thing happens where somebody will be like, I think I'm a 3. And I'm like, no, you're not.
No,
I don't say it. I can't say it. You can't be like, no, you don't have an incessant drive and vanity. Like, no, you're not. But okay. Because people want it. They see the word achiever and they're like,
I'm not.
I want to be that. And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about the dark side. Let's talk about the dark side. So
there's definitely a dark side.
Yeah. There's a dark side to every single one of them. Okay, Savvy. Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing. I think that this is happening. This happens to small businesses and clinics all over, and just having someone that can even just resonate with what the grief that you're going through is. So thank you to speaking to that.
Thank you for having me on.
If somebody wanted to like reach out to you,
reach out to me on Instagram, Savy Ford.
Okay, cool.
Or Blossom Family Chiro is my clinic.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, She Slayers. Make sure that you are clicking like or subscribe or follow or whatever the button is on the platform you listen to the podcast on. Go follow Savvy because she's just got a fun little Florida Instagram account that is for us Northerners are like, oh, it looks nice down there in Florida today.
It's like 38 degrees today.
I'm so sad for you. I'm so sad.
So cold.
No, honestly, honestly, this is why our family goes to Mexico every year instead because
Sure.
we do a week all inclusive. Well, we do like a tropical week, usually in January or February, and we have for the last 7 years. And
Florida can be
ideally,
too
it's just
cold.
more convenient to go to like Miami or Florida. Like it's cheaper. It's America. You don't have to deal with customs. You don't have to deal with any of that. You don't have to deal with diarrhea. But like you look at the weather and it's like, oh, average highs are 65. It's like you could get an 80-degree day, but like I need guaranteed. I also, besides
Yeah.
alligators, another nightmare I have, and it's usually only when I'm coming up to like a vacation like this, is that it's like the last full day and I haven't gotten enough time tanning.
Mm,
Yeah,
it's a real problem.
real problem. I should keep in therapy. All right, Savvy again. Thank you so much, She Slayers. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Out if you are going through any of this. Until next week. Bye.